Okay, let's get right into it. We're opening up a case file on one of the most chilling legends from the ancient world, a ghostly procession that haunted the absolute darkest winter nights. And look, this isn't just some campfire story. For centuries, people believed this was a very real and very deadly event. So I want you to imagine this. It's the middle of winter, the sky is crystal clear, but then you hear it, the unmistakable rumble of a storm and the howling of dogs. If you were living back in ancient Germanic times, that sound meant only one thing. They were coming for you. What you were hearing was the Oscoreia, or as it was known in Norway, the Asgard Ride. This was believed to be a literal parade of the dead led by the god Odin himself, a spectral hunt that just thundered across the winter sky. And if you saw it, man, that was a terrifying omen. It meant disaster, war, plague, you name it, was right around the corner. But who exactly was in this terrifying army? See, this wasn't just a random stampede of ghosts. The hunt was highly selective, a calculated search for specific types of souls. It went after the dishonorable dead, traitors, cowards, and oathbreakers, people whose actions in life meant they couldn't find peace. It also swept up the living, the wicked and the sinful, acting as a kind of immediate cosmic judgment. And finally, it scooped up the restless dead, spirits who died violent or untimely deaths and were just stuck between worlds, unable to move on. Their endless ride wasn't chaos, it was a punishment. Okay, and this brings us to probably the most critical part of this case file, the immediate danger to anyone who actually witnessed the hunt. Simply seeing the Oscaria wasn't like watching a storm from your window. Oh no, it meant you were now part of the event, and in some serious, serious trouble. The belief was absolute. If you laid eyes on the hunt, your luck had just completely run out. Immediate and terrible misfortune, like a sudden illness or losing everything you owned, was considered the best case scenario. But it gets so much worse. The fear wasn't just about bad luck. It was about being physically taken. People told terrifying stories of being literally pulled off the ground and swept up into the sky with the ghostly host, your feet just leaving the earth as you're swallowed by this storm of spirits. And if you were taken, that was it. You were now a permanent member of the Oscoreia. Your life, your identity, your future, just gone. You were forced to join this horrifying eternal chase across the night sky, never finding rest, just becoming another shrieking face in that chaotic crowd. This quote really shows you just how real this terror was. This wasn't some little fairy tale. It was a deep, powerful belief that the wall between our world and the underworld was dangerously thin, and that the hunt could just drag you right across it. So how would you know it was coming? Well, the myth wasn't just about a ghost army appearing out of nowhere. There were specific warning signs, this escalating sense of dread that told you the hunt was getting close. The danger actually had a season. It all started in early winter as the veil between worlds started to thin. It hit its absolute peak during the Yule season, the darkest part of the year, a time when it was believed the supernatural could walk the earth freely. The danger would finally start to fade as the days got longer and spring was on its way. Before the whole procession showed up, Odin sent his scouts. And we're talking about his famous ravens, Hugin and Munin, which mean thought and memory. They'd be accompanied by enormous spectral wolves and even his bizarre eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. These guys weren't just hanging out. They were the advance party, the very first sign that the hunt was on. And their mission was pretty sinister. Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, were basically his eyes and ears, sent to find information and pinpoint prey. This completely changes things, right? It turns the old Oscoria from a mindless storm into a calculated search for those specific souls, the dishonorable, the restless, the wicked. It makes the hunt feel intelligent and way more terrifying. So that leads to a really important question. What was the survival plan? If you missed the warning signs and got caught out in the open, ancient wisdom had a desperate last-ditch protocol. Here's what you had to do. First, you hear it, that unnatural storm, the baying of hounds where there shouldn't be any. The second you do, you throw yourself face down on the ground. The goal was simple, totally primal. Do not, under any circumstances, look up. You had to avoid being seen by that ghostly army at all costs. Now, this wasn't about hiding from something you could, physically fight. Lying flat on the earth was this symbolic act of clinging to the world of the living, of showing total submission to this passing terror. It was believed to be the only thing that could stop you from being seen, chosen, and forced into that endless, restless ride. But that desperate move, that was only for people caught outside. There was one method of survival that was considered pretty much foolproof, a true guarantee of safety from the hunt.
The difference in strategy couldn't be more clear. Outdoor survival was a last resort, a desperate gamble to go unnoticed. But being indoors, that was the ultimate sanctuary. The walls of your home, the warmth of your hearth, that was seen as the safest protection against the restless dead.
This terrifying myth, it turns out, had a really practical side. It worked as a powerful cultural warning. Let's be honest, Northern European winters were, and still are, incredibly dangerous. This story, this personification of a storm's fury, kept people inside during violent weather, and probably saved a ton of lives. So why does this story still get under our skin? Why are we still talking about it hundreds of years later? Well, the answer is in what the Oscoreia really represents, something much deeper than just a scary story about winter storms. At its very heart, The Wild Hunt is a story about facing the fundamental chaos of our world. It's a narrative about death, the fear of not being able to rest in peace, and those terrifying forces of nature that are completely out of our control. It gave a community's anxieties a name and a face. The myth's staying power really comes from a few key places. It gives a face to the brutal danger of winter. It taps into that primal fear of the supernatural that we all have. It helps us process our struggle with mortality, and maybe most importantly, it creates a story for chaos, turning a random, destructive storm into something with rules and characters and even a small chance for survival. And really, that's the main takeaway. It almost doesn't matter if people thought it was a literal army of ghosts or just a poetic way to describe a winter storm. Either way, the cultural impact was exactly the same. The hunt demanded respect, it reinforced social rules, and it made people be careful. Which leaves us with one final thought. The ancients created the wild hunt to give a face to the chaos of winter and a reason for the awful things that happened to them. So, what about us? What modern myths, what stories do we tell ourselves to explain the huge, uncontrollable forces that shape our world today?